Good evening. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, and welcome to another edition of Black Press USA and NNPA's FIA. We are talking today about being a parent. There is no book on it. Well, actually, there are now books on it. Joining us now is a wonderful parent, an author, and a parenting strategist and consultant. Her name is Carol Muleta. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Taylor.
I appreciate having you here. It's 2022. Lots of things have happened. We're still dealing with the pandemic. There are so many things that I have on my list of questions to ask you. So let's first start about you professionally. You are a parenting strategist. I have never heard of that before.
Yes. So what I do is I help families and parents rediscover the joy in their journey by giving them a fresh approach to discipline, to making positive connections with their children, and just building strong family connections. I am creator of the Parenting 411 platform, where I'm committed to delivering information parents need from sources they can trust. So I have webinars, workshops, master classes, and a podcast, and I've written some books. And all of this is to help parents feel confident as parents, to enjoy being parents, and to be equipped to guide their children to reach their full potential.
So, Carol, you said some books. Let's clarify that. You're a 5-time best-selling author. So let's put that in there. Just to give it credit to the fact that you're not just, this is not, something that you're doing on the side. You really are living and breathing what you're talking about. And I believe you're a mother of twin boys.
I am. I don't know if they want me to call them boys anymore.
Oh, yeah, they're adults.
No, well, they're 22 years old. I mean, to my husband and I, when we talk about them, yeah, they're the boys.
So obviously being a parenting strategist, is that a terminology that has been around for years and we're just hearing about it, or is it something fairly new?
Well, strategist might be different. That's just my spin on it. But parent educator is certainly something that has been around. And it's really basically people that work with parents to give them strategies, obviously, and ideas and tips for engaging with their children, whether, of course, behavior is a big area. So there's the discipline piece, and that's certainly an area that really intimidates a lot of parents, honestly. And then, of course, strong parent-child communication, and then just good, solid family connections and a bond that will just really sustain the family for years to come.
Now, parenting, I know when people think of that, they are thinking of toddlers, right? But once you have a child, that's always your baby boy or daughter, no matter what. In the headlines recently, we have learned of some well-known actors and actresses that have lost their child. Mm-hmm. And they were in their 20s. Maybe one was in their 30s. Mm-hmm. What do you say to parents? Because we don't ever stop parenting. In the world of this new pandemic that we have now, what are some parenting 411s that we can think about for our children that are over the age of 20?
Oh, absolutely. Well, mother's work is never done, and parents' work is never done. It's just that you transition at different points, key points in children's lives, and you play a different role. So whereas with toddlers, you mentioned that initially, there you are really a hands-on manager with your child. And then, as they get a little older, you begin to teach them life skills. They learn how to do a lot of things for themselves and for others around the house. Then you can step back and be more of a coach. That is when they can be guided by you or independently solving problems and really recognizing the effects of their actions, the consequences of their actions, whether they be positive or negative. And then when you have older children, young adult children, and beyond, then you're more of a consultant, right? They have to make their decisions. You have to hope that over the course of your relationship with them and them being with you in your home, that you've given them the skills they need so that they can really create the life that they want, that will be fulfilling for them. But if you have a good relationship, then hopefully they're going to consult with you. They want to run some things by you.
Yeah. So, I think there's a couple things that you mentioned, and it's on my list of people who've asked me, like, Taylor, ask this question for me, discipline. So it has changed over time, especially I would think for many in the African-American community. Is there, when you're having a dialogue with people from different ethnic backgrounds, is that discussion really different in the sense of how you approach it?
It can.
To people when it comes to disciplining their young children?
Well, yes. I mean, certainly they're different. There are definitely cultural differences, but I have created a model that really applies across the board. And I think one big change I want to say before I go into that is that now parents relate to their children a little bit differently. I mean, whereas, when I was growing up and before, parents didn't want to hear a lot of questions. They told you what they wanted you to do, when they wanted you to do it, and that's what they expected. There was not a lot of give and take. And so now you have some extremes. I mean, some parents take it too far and just kind of feel like their children should just be free and everything should be fun and they shouldn't be stressed. So those children don't have a lot of boundaries. And then on the other hand, you still have some that believe sort of in that old school rigid approach, which is authoritarian parents. And so really what is really most effective is more in the middle. Yes, there are certain boundaries that you certainly should communicate to your children, but give them a little perspective as well about why that is, for their safety, whatever. And then also give them an opportunity to ask questions, respectfully, of course, but to just get a better understanding of why the world works the way it does, why your family works the way it does. And so the foundational points that I think need to be present to really help instill a sense of self-discipline, because that's what we're doing with our children. Starting from an early age, we are providing that external discipline, but what we're hoping is that they develop internal discipline, self-discipline along the way. So you need connection, first of all. They need to understand that you're coming from a place of love. I learned very early when my children were younger through a book that I read that affection, protection, and correction need to be present, right? And so
protection and correction?
Yes, okay. Yes. And so that's, very foundational. So there's connection. Then there is communication, which needs to be clear and concise.
Okay.
And then next, they need a compass, which really is about the boundaries. They get the lay of the land, what they can do, when and where and how. And once you lay out those boundaries, give them some choices about how they work within those boundaries. And so next is choice. And then after that is consequences. Allow them to own the consequences of their actions. And, very important to understand that consequences can be positive as well as negative. It's not, consequences is not just a negative word. It has a negative connotation along with discipline for parents sometimes, because it's, the old school approach to discipline is really punishment.
Yeah, I grew up in the version of life where I was free to speak and to do things that I wanted to do. They did do restrictions, but my mother forgot it within a day. So, I mean, I wonder, what do you say to parents? Like, because I see parents, and I have friends now, that their baby, their young teenager, they just can never do wrong. And I worry because when you have a sense like that, everything that you do is going to be you're going to be protected in some way. You'll be able to get out of it. As an adult, I don't think it's healthy to think that. I do think you should have boundaries. I do think you should understand that not everything you want or think can happen or should you say. I was the parent that when I walked to a store, I never told my daughter she couldn't touch anything. She can touch it, don't break it. She's very inquisitive. So what do you say to those parents that just, I want to give my son or daughter anything and everything they want? What type of an adult can it possibly make them if you continue that?
It can be very, very detrimental to how your children come out, because first of all, they have these expectations and they're going to have a rude awakening because other people aren't living that way. They will find that they're not the center of everyone's world, as a matter of fact. And that's first of all, a very big disappointment to them that they're not going to have their way with other people, but they can also grow up very insecure. Because, boundaries are helpful in that way. I mean, it really gives a sense of how far they can go, because otherwise they're just bumping up against things, just trying to test things out. But when you know what you're allowed to do and how far you can go, then you can, kind of exercise some creativity and how you're going to do things and really allow your own personality to figure things out. And sometimes our children really surprise us. They come up with better ideas or new alternative ways of doing things that we hadn't even thought of. And we ought to allow them that flexibility, because they're going to need it when they go out into life and confront different situations. They've got to be flexible and adaptable, and they can't practice that if, number one, we have too many, we have rules and boundaries that we don't communicate with them about. They don't kind of understand them. Or if they have none at all, then they just don't get a chance to practice those vital survival skills.
What do you say to parents who are either helicopter parents, as my daughter likes to call me? She's watching right now. I know she is. Helicopter parents, or those parents that are just so strict about everything?
Well, again, I'll start with those that are so strict about everything. And, they're not giving their children the opportunity to become critical thinkers, because when you're so strict about everything, you're pretty much telling your child what to do, how to do, when to do. And like you're giving very specific instructions. There's no room for not creativity, creativity, but just understanding and being able to make good decisions. They're just doing what somebody else tells them. And remember, our children aren't with us all the time. I mean, even when they are just school age, like early school age, they're spending time with other people. And so there are going to be new situations that come up. And if you can't give them that kind of decision-making model, then they won't be prepared. And so that it's very dangerous, because, courage is really a muscle. Resilience is a muscle. And so if your children don't get out there and, make a few mistakes, right? And, and learn learn the consequences of their actions at an early age, when the stakes are low and when there's lots of supervision to kind of control the damage, the collateral damage, then we're really robbing them of some key life experiences that are going to set them up for success in life. They're not going to have those.
Well, you're listening now to Black Press USA and NNPA. FIRE, that's the program. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas. My guest joining me now is parenting strategist and consultant and 5-time best-selling author, Carol Muleta. I want to break this into groups, okay? So let's talk about first, it'll be the toddlers, it'll be the middle schoolers, and then the high schoolers. What can you give us advice-wise to make our children well-rounded, conscious, caring kids? What can we do for these stages of life that our guests may be in with their children?
Okay, so very early on with children, the younger children, it really kind of goes back to the model that I have. It's that connection, that first bit, like making sure that your children know that you are there, that they are loved, and then give them opportunities to engage in the environment. Like, don't do everything for them. As is age appropriate, allow them to do things for themselves. That's where you start, as a matter of fact, with self-care, so that they can develop skills and confidence to try new things and really just expand their toolkit. And so also explore their interest, allow them to discover new talents, or at least maybe areas that they might want to explore so that they can develop those skills, because again, that's something else that builds confidence for them, and it gives them the sense that they have something to offer and contribute to the world. So that's the start. And then also communication at every level, with your toddlers, toddlers and young children, you can begin to communicate with them. I mean, explain when you have the family room cleaned up, you've picked up your toys, then we can do the next thing. That little statement, it really gets them thinking, okay, so now I know what I have to do in order to do what I want to do. Or now I know what comes next. I mean, all of that plants the seed for critical thinking. And a lot of times misbehavior and misunderstandings come from not really understanding what's going on. So share some of that. And so then, of course, you said in middle school, continue with that in terms of exploring their interests, keeping the line of communication open, but now they can have more responsibilities as well as privileges, because you're expanding the boundaries a little bit. They're capable now. They're more capable than they were earlier. They have their cognitive skills have increased. Their fine motor and gross motor skills, they're just physically capable of more. So you can give them jobs around the house to help out, because that certainly is building the foundation for good life skills. But then there are also more activities that they can participate in. So allow them to do that. Also give them more responsibility, so that they see that their actions around the house and in the community have an impact on other people. And that when they don't honor their responsibility, there's a ripple effect. There are other people that will have to be impacted by their actions. And so it's important to have that self-awareness. And then with the teens, again, they're now even capable of more. And so allow them to expand their boundaries and responsibility. I mean, that's what you always want to do. I mean, you want them to do as much as they are capable of doing. You don't want to hold them back. You can still have boundaries, but that's really what it is. A lot of misbehavior from small children and on up to adults can stem from feeling trapped, not being able to contribute, not having the proper response to life situations. And so those building blocks come in childhood.
So what are some common things that you've heard or seen that parents say to their children that we really should never say to their children?
Well, there's the times that we try to talk our children out of their feelings or tell them how they're feeling. Mm-hmm. So when they say that they're mad, or they're mad at their sibling, or they're mad at their friend, we tell them, no, of course not. You're not mad at your friend. That's your best friend. You're not mad. Or your brother or sister. No, we love each other in this family. And yes, you do love each other in the family. And it is possible that your child is angry at his sibling. So let's talk about that. So there's that. Definitely talking them out of their feelings. That's something that we often say. And then also just, no, that's not something you can do. Like if when they ask permission to do something or try something, we just dismiss, no, that you're not able to do that, instead of really trying to figure out, well, if this is something that the child is really interested in learning, let's figure out how we can learn, even if it's in steps, in stages. And so there's that. And then just doing things for our children too much. So we're always in a rush. And that's something that's a lot of people talked about, like prior to the pandemic. We were always going here, there, and everywhere. And so a lot of times we missed opportunities to teach our children things, to allow them to learn things, because we can just do it faster and we can be on to the next thing. So that's something else we do as well, where we just rob them of opportunities and we just tell them, never mind, I'll do it. I can do it faster, that kind of thing.
Carol, what do you say, or how do you help a family that has a child that is an angry child? I have been really surprised in my years of doing these interviews of talking to adults who recall being angry at 6, angry at 12. What type of advice do you give a parent?
So find out what's going on. And I know that sounds simple and all, but sit down with them and say, point out, like, recognize the anger. Again, don't talk them out of it. But wow, you seem like you're frustrated, or you really didn't like what happened when we were at the playground, or it seems like, something didn't go right at school. Tell, what was it? I can just tell. And, you can talk, or you can even say, I know sometimes, when someone does something to me, I feel like that too. I want to hear, I want to understand. So there's definitely that seeking to understand. And then find out, what do you wish were true? What do you wish were different? Okay. And then, think about what that could look like. Like, I can remember when one of my sons was maybe, I think maybe second grade, something like that. And so he would always talk about this person that was always in his face and just invading his personal space, and just always trying to take over when he was playing with things and all of that. And so he came home just frustrated, wanted me to call the person's mother or come to school the next day and talk to the child myself. And, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, well, you're going to call my teacher for sure. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that either. And he said, well, who's going to, talk to them? And I said, you are. And so what we did was role play what that would be, like talking to the other child about, a progressive approach to telling the child to stop. Like for the first time, stop doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then the second time, make sure to make eye contact, like really stop what you're doing. And then on that third time, go tell the teacher. So that was part of it. But then it was also, I wanted him to talk to his teacher to ask for the three of them to sit down so that he could sit across from the child and let the child know how he was feeling and what it was that was bothering him. And so we role played that as well, him approaching his teacher, because again, second grade, he was pretty shy.
Sure.
And so, basically we talked about what I just said, like, when you do this, I feel, so talking about his feelings, but also to talk about what he wishes were true. And so the next morning he walked right into class, didn't even put his books down or take his coat off, and went straight to the teacher and said, we need to sit down with this other student. And that's what they did. And, I have to say that those self-advocacy skills really carried him a long way. He really used that model on up through, high school, and he still uses it today. He's a pretty good advocate for himself. And, I was tempted to take matters into my own hands, but I felt like, it's not too early to start. So that's what I did. And for anyone that's listening, there's a series of books that teach children. They're written at children's level to talk them through problems that children have. So like bullying or, communicating with their friends, handling homework, just a lot of things that children, real life challenges. It can even be something like maybe divorce or whatever. And so this was, these models were crafted after he and I read some of these books together. And so, Trevor Romaine writes some of those, and and then there's a company that writes self-help books for kids. So those kinds of books can be helpful as well, so they can see that other children are experiencing, challenges, as with anger, and there were books on anger as well.
Now, this may be a little bit of a tough question, but we're hearing now more and more that kids as young as 2, or 3 or 4, maybe 5, are asking about sexuality. How do you talk about that when sometimes adults don't even know how to address it?
Mm-hmm. And so are you meaning their own sexuality or sex?
Yes.
Their own
sexuality.
Their own sexuality. Well, I mean, definitely hear them out. I mean, in terms of what their questions are and what they're feeling like. And then also, again, sit down with them with books that kind of, first of all, just kind of explain, what, their bodies and things like that. And, their parts of their body and just what they were born with, what they started off with, and then kind of get into what they're feeling like in terms of, it's really about what they're feeling like when they're relating to their friends and other people. What are they feeling like in their bodies? And
I don't mean to cut you off, Carol,
Sure.
but I often wonder, kids are so impressionable. I mean, some kids do know right off when they were 6 years old, they wanted to be a doctor or a nurse or, a manicurist. I mean, and then some are just impressionable. And I always wonder, in having a kid that's inquisitive, that even though you may be feeling a feeling, it may not be that. It's just, you may really like somebody. It's not that you like that gender or that person. And so is that the point where you seek professional help? I mean, I don't think obviously a parent would be able to go through the process like a professional. Is that where people would come to someone like you, or do they go to a different kind of person?
Well, possibly it would be someone that's trained in that, like maybe a psychologist, or to just talk through what they're feeling, if they're insistent and whatever. Because as you said initially, you're just really giving them the information that they are asking for. Like, you're not going overboard with, so if your child's asking a simple question, like sometimes, I feel like I really would prefer different types of toys, because I know that boys usually like to play with this, but I really prefer that, or whatever. I don't think it's healthy for parents to be, oh, well, that must mean that you don't feel like a boy anymore and you want to be a girl, and we're going to go down that road. It's really just exploring, like, is there a reason, let them play with the kind of toy they want to play with or whatever, and just move as the child moves, I think is the best approach. And not, because as you said, they can be impressionable, not just about, sexual orientation, but about other things as well. So definitely follow the child's lead. And I guess if there's just this yearning, there's just really struggling with that, then yes, I would recommend counseling, just so that the parents and the child and a mental health professional can talk about that, because I think that it is very much a lot of, there's a lot of psychological considerations as well. I mean, I don't mean mental health as there's a problem with the child, but you know what I'm saying? Sure. There's a lot that goes on with the psyche. I mean, because that's what they're getting at. It has moved beyond, I like to play with the toys that the opposite sex likes to play with. There's something else now. They're just feeling, they're thinking like they're out of place.
And because kids are impressionable, do you think that you should perhaps maybe look at who they are around or what they've been exposed to that may make them question what they're thinking and feeling?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's pretty much with everything. Yes, absolutely. I mean, and just in the course of asking them questions, as they're making these statements or asking these questions, yes, that's absolutely, part of the conversation in terms of, why are you feeling like this, or when did you start feeling this way, or in which situations, and all of that. And so that's when you can find out what they've seen, what they've heard, who they've spent time with, and where the idea may have come from. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Now you have a podcast. What is the name of it, and how can we follow you and hear what you're talking about?
It is the Parenting 411 podcast, and it's on most platforms where you can get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, those places. And so what I do is explore the traditional issues of, again, the concerns that parents often have with challenging behavior, parent-child communication, and family relationships, family dynamics. But I also like to take a look at some of the other issues that affect family life. It could be something about politics. It could be something about racial justice, or just other aspects, or even, I talk about the whole work-life harmony. I'll have people, working parents come on and talk about how they create work-life harmony, how they're balancing that. I had an author of a really great book, the Parental Leave Playbook, that really talks about, the importance of having a plan in terms of when you take your parental leave. It also has really has some great information that I think lawmakers should look at as well, so that they can understand what parents need, what working parents and families need when they're crafting legislation around that issue.
Now, you have a book, the Parenting Odyssey. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and if you can get a copy?
Oh, yes. This is the Parenting Odyssey. It's
wait, hold it up. Oh, wow. Okay, great. Okay, good.
So it's the Parenting Odyssey: Trials, Treasures, and Triumphs of Parenting in a Pandemic. And so it's a compilation of stories from 15 authors. They are all parents. And the reason I wanted to do this was because throughout the pandemic, when I was on radio or my News You Can Use Facebook Live series that is on every Thursday night, I was talking to parents, or I should say my guests happen to be parents in some cases. And so aside from talking about whatever their area of expertise was, we would always gravitate toward how the family was coping. And so I just kept hearing the same things. Like, of course, they were nervous and worried about, just even getting the virus. That's first off. So they wanted to go into protection mode and make sure their family was safe. But then with the lockdown, it was frustrating at first because they were managing work, they were managing school, which they had never done before. But then they started to notice that they had more time, that they were starting to enjoy the time. And then not only with family, but with themselves. So they had an opportunity to reflect and think about the lives they were leading and kind of making some new decisions. And so I wanted to capture that in a book. And so what I was able to do was, it didn't start off with intention of that, but I ended up with families that represent every region of this country: the West, the Midwest, the South, the lower northern region, plus Madrid, Spain, and Abuja, Nigeria. And so, what we found were that, the chief concerns were pretty much universal for families. It was physical health and safety, protective measures, and then mental well-being. And, it's really been a powerful book. And the themes that have come up were, in family connection, just, family members learning new things about each other, family members being able to teach each other. Like now, the kids were being able to teach parents about technology, and the parents were able to teach them a lot of skills that they didn't have time for before. And there's just this overwhelming sense of gratitude for all of this time that family had together. And then also the mental health matters. Parents and children were, parents were able to tap in and really look more deeply at their children, how they were coping. They were also able to practice better self-care and self-examination. And then there was also another thing that ran through the book, another theme was this sense of service and community, like, wanting to help other people. Several of them found ways to help other families. But then also to remember, some of them talked about remembering to seek help when you need it, being able to articulate what you need, because a lot of times people don't help because they don't know what you need. And then there was just this life-changing growth. I mean, people were birthing new businesses and exploring dreams and learning, taking advantage of online learning opportunities. There were new perspectives on parenting, how you conquer crisis. And there was, of course, this new consciousness about race in America. And finally, a spiritual awakening. A lot of people found that they had more gratitude in their hearts, their faith was renewed, and there was just, an appreciation for God's creation, an appreciation for nature.
Well, it sounds like a book great for any family. And I love the fact that you have so many diverse backgrounds and different parts of the region involved in it. Carol Muleta, she is a wonderful parenting strategist, consultant, and 5-time best-selling author. We have to thank you for joining us today on the program. Lots of great information. Now, where can we follow you?
Oh, I am the Parenting 411 on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Carol Muleta on LinkedIn. And, to learn more about the books that I've written, you can visit carolmuleta.com/books.
Very simple. Very simple. Well, thank you so very, very, very much for joining us tonight. All right. So we are changing gears now for the second half of the show. And we're doing something that we've never done here on this particular show for Black Press USA. We're actually going and taking it to the streets. We are going to shift gears now. And of course, it was pre-recorded, but we're going to go now to the 2022 DC Auto Show. And we're going to speak to the person of automotive rhythms. It's the art of motions. We're going to turn the gears now. And now we're going to go to the 2022 DC Auto Show.
It is Taylor Thomas, and I am here at the 2022 Washington Convention Center Auto Show. Specifically, I'm in the art of motions. As you can see to my left, this is the creator of what we're getting ready to see, Kitani Rawlins, and he is with Automotive Rhythms. Tell us where we are and what's happening here.
Well, thanks again for having me. It's always a pleasure connecting with you. So this is our 6th annual Automotion display here at the Washington Auto Show. We've had a partnership with them for a decade now, and the whole premise is to bring some energy, an eclectic vibe, and intersperse that with art, custom cars, supercars, custom bikes, music, and just inspirational graphics. So we bring in different artists to paint themes on the cars, and then of course we have $1 million cars, $500,000
Let's go check this out over
cars.
here. So we're gonna bring you close to the mic here. So what are we looking at over here with this orange, bright orange vehicle? It's beautiful.
Yes, that's a Porsche GT3 RS. So I mean, that's kind of like a supercar. Porsche, they stick to the road. They're very planted. So on windy roads, you can have a lot of fun in that German car right there. And
How fast does it go?
It's probably 0 to 60 in like 3.1.
What?
Probably. Yeah.
What? Okay, what is this next to it?
That's a Corvette C8. So
I didn't even recognize it was a Corvette.
that's a Corvette. Both of these are Corvettes, actually.
That is sick.
Yes. Two brothers own these, and it's fascinating to see how the car culture is in the DC area.
Oh, definitely the
especially
Corvette
within our
Club.
market.
Yeah, the Corvette Club is very huge in Prince George's County and also Virginia as well. So these are people that actually have their vehicles and they're lending them to be displayed at the
Yeah, so these are people that we have good relationships with. They're either individual owners or they're with a particular car club, and they want to be in this event. They want to be in this display because it's a 10-day show, and typically car shows are like 1 day, half day. So it's a really exciting opportunity for them to showcase their vehicle, not just to one particular audience, but a subset of different audiences in the DC area, all by coming to the Washington Auto Show.
Now, come on, can you please tell people a little bit about you, because you are a writer. You've gone to Germany, to all these different places where they actually make the vehicles, and you're seeing them being built.
Absolutely. So I'm an automotive journalist. I'm the founder of Automotive Rhythm. So our goal is to create content where our market, our people receive it in the lingo that they speak and communicate with. So there's a lot of nomenclature, a lot of technology, a lot of terms that are foreign to us. My job is to take that and break it down into the people so they can understand it, especially with this new wave of electric vehicles, because the transportation industry is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. So we want to start abreasting them on that as well. How do I charge? What do I charge? Where's the best charging stations? What car battery is going to last the longest? So, there's all these denominations of the auto segment that, I'm privy to be a part of. I get to experience it. I get to interview the engineers, like you said. I get to fly to the plants and see how the cars are built, and then see how they, behave in person, in action.
So I'm asking you for your professional recommendation, Kitani. What are 3 of the top cars, not EVs, but 3 of the top, whether they're selling or just popular? What are the 3 ones off the top of your head?
I knew you was going to go there. Well, if you do talk about EVs, one of the most popular is, Tesla.
Yes.
I think that's more because people were, they were the first to come out, so, they took advantage of the early adapters. But there's a lot of, another wave of EV companies that's coming out, Rivian. Audi has an all-electric brand. BMW has an all-electric brand. So for me, I'm going to go with the new Mercedes EQS because that thing is just out of this world. It trumps everything in terms of technology, performance, engineering. That's just what it's all about. It has a screen that goes from the passenger door all the way to the driver's door. One cohesive screen. And then the passenger has his own set of operations on that screen. I mean, the Germans are just kind of so far advanced that you can never leave them out of any discussion. Ever.
Well, you see, Kitani knows all about. We could be talking to him for hours, so we're going to turn around because I see. Is that the Maybach?
No, that's actually a Rolls Royce.
Oh my gosh! See, look! This is why you have to come to the car show. I'm looking from a distance. I need to get my glasses on.
So we have a Phantom, and then we have a drop head coupe.
No, this is huge.
The black one's a drop head coupe, which is a convertible. So
that is sick. And these are your clients that are allowing you to display these vehicles. Can you tell me what's the price for either one of these with all the bells and whistles on them?
they start about $380,000.
Oh, that is sick. And these are the vehicles that you usually are sitting in the back seat because you have a driver.
Well, typically, if you got a Rolls, you want to have a driver, but spending that type of money, you also want to push it as well.
Oh my God! So, what are, other than the fact of the money, what luxury features inside that stand out from other vehicles that are luxury vehicles like this?
Well, the thing about a Rolls Royce is what we call bespoke engineering. And that means that everything can be customized.
Okay.
You know, if you want hardwood floors in the rear, you can get it. If you want glass paneling on your floor, you can get it. You can actually have the paint of your vehicle customized to the color of your wife's eyes.
What?
Yes. And that's
I
what
want
people...
you guys to get close to see this because I'm not even giving us the details. This is beautiful. This thing is huge. It's so far off the ground.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
like a
And that's the, you know, the spirit of ecstasy, which is the emblem on the front. She'll tip down when she doesn't want to be seen, but the owner kept her out, you know, of course. So,
I love it. I love it. So what is this vehicle that you're riding? The BMW.
so these are actually in the same family, you know, BMW owns Rolls Royce.
Okay.
So this is the i8, and it just ceased production. So it's a hybrid, so it's half gas, you know, half electric. But it was their first kind of hybrid sports car, and
How'd it do?
it did okay, but not as great as they wanted it to.
Okay.
So they are expanding on the brand. It's called their i brand.
Yes.
You know, so that's their all electric brand, like the i3. And they have an array of other different vehicles coming out that have since, you know, replaced this. But the i8 is always going to be a classic.
Now you have been talking a lot about EV, the electric vehicles. Let's talk about that. How are we segueing that into African Americans understanding and really getting to get in on this EV nation?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, we don't want to be left out, like, of a new shift. And typically we are. And not only in terms of purchasing, but investing too.
Okay.
You know, EV stocks, you know, you want to get in on some of these companies that are building the cars, building the charging stations.
Yes.
You know, because we want generational wealth. We really never had that.
Okay.
In the auto industry, it's like the #1 industry in terms of gross domestic product. I mean, it fuels a lot of the income, and factories and workforce are globally. So we want to be a part of that. But from an educational standpoint, we don't want to be left out, because as everyone else is shifting to EVs and we're still driving gasoline, by the time we get into EVs, you know, we don't want the prices to be so high that we don't price ourselves out the game.
Right.
You know, so the key is really to, like, first of all, taking the information. Every major car company, including Rolls Royce, has said that by 2030, they're going to be all electric. So that's not far away.
No.
So we have to start retooling our mind, like, you know, we just got to get used to charging. And they started off targeting the youth because the youth grew up charging things,
Right,
like their
exactly.
devices. Where I'm almost 58, I really didn't. I had to force myself into this. So now it's like you get home, you got to plug your car up, you know. So like you got to, you know, reset the mind state, because if an EV is your only vehicle, you don't want to be out of juice come morning time. And then they have to expand the charging infrastructure. If you live in an apartment building, where am I going to charge my vehicle while
That's
back?
right.
How close is the nearest charging station? Like there's one in Bowie, for example,
Yeah.
a
Okay.
charging network. So, you know, from a geographical perspective, you want to educate the buyers on where these locations are too. So now, and they're actually putting them in shopping centers. So while you're charging your car, you can go grocery shop, you know, pick up a smoothie, etc., etc.
So what does that run? Because I was just talking to my daughter about it, and I said I went to the gas station and there was a row of people just sitting in the middle at night charging their vehicles. I mean, like they were watching TV or something. So what does that usually run? At least you're talking about now. How does that work?
Yeah, well, it's really cheap. Like it's like the cost of charging up your refrigerator overnight.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's not a lot, but a lot of the companies are giving you credit when you purchase a vehicle.
Okay.
And then, you know, some of these cars you can get a quick charge because there's different levels. You know,
Okay.
you got DC2 levels, you got, you know, level 2, level 3, level 1. Level 1 is just, you know, a regular, you know, plug that you plug your TV in. 110 volt. But typically 30 minutes, you can get a nice juice of, you know, at least 40-50% charge.
Okay.
So you can do what you need to do.
So let me ask you, because if anyone out there is like me, I forget sometimes to charge my phone. What do you do if there's a power outage and you haven't charged up your, is there a backup generator? or a system that you can make sure you can drive your vehicle if you're in a EV?
Yeah, well, that's the downside of it.
Okay.
Unless you get the Ford F-150 Lightning that comes with a generator.
He has an answer for everything. Okay, so if you
Which that generator will charge your house.
What?
You know, so you can use your EV truck in the Ford Lightning to charge up your house.
What was the name of the vehicle again?
The Ford Lightning. It's their new all-electric pickup truck.
That is incredible. Did you
Yeah.
guys hear that? You heard that first. Listen, we're going to walk over here because, you know, I know people want to talk to him too. So I'm seeing motorcycles. So can you tell me what I'm looking at? We're going to bring my camera person around here so they can see it.
Yeah, so, I mean, of course, you know, cycling is a part of transportation. And
Oh my God, look at this.
these are from two of my partners, Leon and Light from Bagger Boys. So what they do is they customize bikes and they also create custom audio
Look at the
systems
front of
on them
this.
as well.
Yeah, look at the front of this bike. So can you, oh my God, how much do they put into this? What do you expect?
They might put $5,000 to $10,000 worth of work into it. It could be more. It just depends
Wow.
on what you want, especially if it's a custom paint job.
Wow.
And this is a Harley Davidson right here. So,
Oh,
I mean, this is more of a cruiser bike.
Yeah.
But you know, with a classic paint scheme. So Lotto Life, he's my partner. You know, like I review cars, Leon reviews all the bikes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So and bikers are very loyal customers. So
Well, I know Harley people. I know quite a few, and they're never going to leave from that.
absolutely.
So what am I seeing behind us? I'm going to have the camera guy turn. What am I seeing? It's like,
So now it comes to the art of motion experience. So we have DC painters painting live on our vehicles. I mean, we partner each artist with a different vehicle, you know, so that way.
is that what we're seeing over here?
Yeah, this is Dez Custom, and Dez is actually, he creates custom sneakers for the NBA and the NFL. So now we gave him a platform here at the auto show. So what we have here is a Toyota Mirai, which is a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, and Dez is like creating like a atmospheric galaxy to show the fusion of the energy from this vehicle.
Hey,
And then-
Des!
How you doing? Good. How you doing?
Wow, so is Des from here?
Yeah, I'm out in Rockville.
Wow. So tell us what we're about to see when you finish.
Well, if you want to peek over the other side, I can show you a little bit more.
Okay, come on, follow us. So we're right now at the 2022 Washington Convention Center Auto Show, Art of Motion, Automotive Rhythm.
So,
Whoa.
This is so what creates all the beautiful colors and things you see out in space is the hydrogen gas that's out in space. So being that this is a hydrogen electric vehicle, what we're going to have is this galaxy come into our atmosphere, creating lightning, which is of course electricity. And at that point, towards the front, we're going to have an ocean and a sky. This car, once that spark is made between the oxygen and the hydrogen, it only emits water. So we're going to have an ocean to depict that water, and the clear blue skies is going to be kind of Toyota's mission for a better ecosystem, cleaner air, cleaner environment.
You
So
are
that's the
truly an
story.
artist. I mean, you really thought about that. It's extraordinary hearing you say it, and I'm getting excited looking at what you're doing now. I can't wait to be able to see. Now, what happens when this car is fully painted? Come on,
Well, it depends on the manufacturer. In this case, Toyota, they're going to send it back to California because this is only a California-built vehicle. Like,
Okay.
it can't be sold in other states.
Okay, why
so-
is that? I'm sorry.
Just because of the hydrogen infrastructure.
Okay.
I think there's like 3,800 hydrogen fuel stations in California. There's rarely any on the East Coast. So this is built specifically for California.
Wow.
To reduce their emissions. And they'll probably take it to a few events and show it off before they take the ramp off. Some car companies auction them off. So it just depends on each individual company.
Now we're going to turn because this is something. I mean, this is a part of Art of Motion. Can you tell us what we're looking at? We're going to walk over here because we're in the middle of the convention center, so people are walking around. We're with the man that's making it happen with Automotive Rhythms. So tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so this is specifically from Bagger Boys. So they're a bike customization shop where they focus mainly on audio for bikes.
Okay.
These are Harley baggers. These are, and those are the bags. And what they've done, they put the speakers. You can see that on top of the speaker. That speaker right there. This sound system will ignite this whole area just like my DJ is. That's how powerful
Are
they
you
are.
serious?
Yes. So their job is to find like all the intricate areas where they can put a speaker, because that's what cruiser owners like doing.
Okay.
Sitting upright, driving slow, and just letting people vibe out to their music.
Do you ever have to worry about parking somewhere with all this money invested in speakers of someone messing with it, or what?
Well, yeah, a lot of these dudes, this isn't like your first or second bike. This is something you bring out like mainly just for events or a weekend cruiser every now and then. It's not like a main bike where you're running errands and gonna go park it somewhere.
Okay. What is that called in the middle? I've seen so many of these driving around here in the DMV. That's not a trike, right? What is that called?
Yeah, these are slingshots.
Slingshots, there we go.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
it's kind of like a motorcycle / car. So it's just the best of both worlds. And, just give you 3-wheel performance. And the same thing, this audio system is just rocking. Like you can see speakers in between the 2 seats, speakers behind the headrest. So that's their job. I mean, and
what does something like this run? Just
well, Gary say they're not really that expensive.
Okay.
You can get one for like 6, 7, 8,000, and then you can put more customizing it.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
And so you do have seatbelts, even though you don't have doors.
Yeah. So you don't want to roll over in that thing.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to do that. You definitely don't want to do that. Now, there's a row of vehicles back here. We're going to try to go back here. So, what is this display back here that we're seeing, a part of Art of Motion?
Oh, so these are our Japanese tuner cars.
Okay.
These is actually, a bunch of young boys, and they're like Subarus and Civics. And what they did is they cambered the wheels. So that's why they're inverted.
Wait,
you
I'm
see how the wheels are inverted? It's called negative camber.
How does that work when you try to drive a vehicle like that?
You're driving very slow and you're turning very wide.
Look at that. Can you see the wheels over here, how they're inverted like that? And it's called what again?
Camber, negative camber.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you can't really hit the DC streets with
No.
this?
I've actually seen one of these in DC, and he was going about 10 miles an hour.
This is great. What does it cost to invert the wheels? I have actually never seen it at in person like this.
Yeah, I'm not sure the cost, but then most of them have what they call bags, so the suspension will raise up, so when they're ready to roll out, it doesn't drive that low.
This is amazing. So
Yeah.
we're here at the Art of Motions here at the Washington Convention Center's auto show. Last year they didn't have one, so I know you're glad to be back now.
It feels good. It feels good to have the energy back, to have the vibe back. Even all the artists, when they saw each other, they're like, oh, bro, So I feel like, I'm like, this is an epicenter of what people really enjoy, whether it's been a car enthusiast, an artist, or just someone that's just inspirational and has positive messaging, and they use it through their various platforms. In this case, it's art and cars.
I love it. So we're here with Kitani Rawlins with Automotive Rhythms here at Art of Motion, the Washington Convention's 2020 Auto Show. How can they follow you and get more information on what it is that you do?
Absolutely. AutomotiveRhythms.com for all the editorial content and reviews, and at Automotive Rhythms on any social media platform. And make sure y'all come on down to the show. We're running till January 30th, Sunday, 6 p.m.
Okay, so it is Taylor Thomas signing off for Black Press USA and NNPA. We'll be back next week.